Good evening. I call to order the Citizens Budget Review Advisory Board meeting for Monday, July 6, 2015. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jeanette, roll call, please.
Chairman Herlihy.
Here.
Ms. Farmer has asked for an excused absence. Mr. Taylor, here he is. He's arriving. Mr. Moda.
Here.
Mr. Slavin.
Here.
Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Frank.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, agenda modifications. Anybody got any changes to the agenda? And Mr. Taylor joins us. Good evening.
Good evening.
No agenda modifications. Okay, next item, approval of the minutes of June 8th and June 29th. I need a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve both minutes.
I second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So approved. Unfinished business. Anybody got anything in that area? Nope, nothing there. Okay. Item 7, new business. Presentation, discussion of updates in the proposed 2015-16 city budget. Mr. Kilgore, the floor is yours.
Thank you. What I've tried to do is bring you all up to date from the time that we gave you the budget books a couple of weeks ago. Not many changes have occurred, but there have been some minor things that I wanted to go over with you so you're aware of them. I've given you a packet with the some of the special revenue funds. I hoped you could follow better if I printed out those sheets and highlighted the dollars that changed there. As far as the general fund, if you remember, the books showed an 8% increase over the current year's property tax receipts. When we got the certified values, if you actually multiply it out, adjust for the CRA contribution, because that varies depending on what millage rate we assume and what the values are for that district. But if you multiply all that out, there's a net gain of $21,915 to the general fund. At this point, we haven't attempted to reallocate that. We still have a couple of issues, as you recall, one being the the negotiations on what pay increases actually are decided on for the PBA and the PEA bargaining units. The other being the health insurance, the request for proposals that have gone out. We actually have a meeting this Thursday that will, where the consultant will present the result of those RFPs. So we should start the request for proposals. So we should know hopefully by Thursday, but probably not, because generally we go through a cycle of telling them that we aren't happy, and can they go back with the vendors that are making the proposals and ask them to tweak their numbers and give us something that we can hopefully live with. So got those two pending items. We're saying we'll just leave this 21,000 kind of on hold for now to see how the process proceeds. The second area is in the local option gas tax fund. I do have a typo on the sheet. That's a minor correction for the FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation. They have a lighting agreement where they offered about $10,000 each year to the city to be responsible for maintaining the traffic signals that are FDOT's responsibility. The flip side of that is that we have a contract with the county as well, where we pay them for extraordinary kind of maintenance on the lights. But this is actually revenue reflected that comes into the local option gas tax fund and goes towards our street programs I've given you the spreadsheet that breaks down the local option gas tax fund, so you can see that I made a slight adjustment for the current year, for the amounts expected to be received this coming fiscal year. Also, I discovered that I hadn't shown the same amount coming into the local option gas tax fund as we had programmed to be transferred out of the general fund into it. I had shown $150,000 a year. What we have in the budget general fund is to transfer $200,000 to the local option gas tax fund. The last thing I adjusted in the local option gas tax fund is we had put in $50,000 to continue an allocation that would go towards the All Aboard Florida reserve account, so to speak, and I've reflected then a continuation of that $50,000 in the future years, just for planning purposes. The second special revenue fund that was affected is the stormwater utility fund. I'm sorry, I left off my cover sheet there. I gave you the summary sheet for the discretionary sales tax fund, the DST monies. I did adjust the projection for the working waterfront drainage project. Based on the latest information that just came in, the matching 50% requirement would actually be 67. I previously had 50,000, I think, in that block. Page after that shows the stormwater utility fund. I discovered after the previous budget committee meeting and talking to the public works director that the current stormwater master plan does not reflect a need for an additional stormwater pond. Thus, I was able to take out that $500,000 that I previously had in the spreadsheet for the year fiscal year 18-19. That drastically improves, of course, the need to have additional revenues to accumulate to that amount of money in those years. So I was able to adjust a little reminder here that based on these numbers, even excluding the $500,000, 4 years, 5 years from now, we may be looking at the point where an increase to the stormwater fee would be necessary, but it's not as imminent, of course, as it was previously with that stormwater pond needing to be taken care of. So I believe this is all pretty good news so far. Let me go to the next page. On the Riverfront CRA, I'm showing the adjusted amount now based on the correct taxable values and the 3.8556 millage rate that we're presuming that we would be recommending. So I've made that small change to the CRA fund. The last spreadsheet I provided is on the golf course. I got additional information actually on the proposed project. I previously understood it to be next year we would do the irrigation system as well as redo the bathrooms. I thought that the $80,000 that we had programmed in the current year budget for restrooms was going to be abandoned and that basically we're going to do it all as one project. Well, I've been informed otherwise. They intend to proceed with modifying the restrooms, the two that are out on the course. In the current year, and this also would be out of the capital improvement fund. So I've revised the worksheet to show the course bathrooms for $80,000 in the current year, and I'll be changing the documentation discussing that project to be only the irrigation system would be funded next year, and that would be for the $1.3 million financed partially by the loan from the building department and $600,000 from the DST fund. So I think that kind of brings you up to date on everything as far as management's position on the recommendation and where we stand. So I'd be glad to respond to any questions you might have.
Questions and comments? Anyone? Okay? For the time being, we'll go on to the next item, which is item B. And with your collective permission, what I'd like to do is swap item C, which is the PowerPoint presentation, and item B. They're pretty well tied together, as you'll see when I go through it. So what I'd like to do is go through the PowerPoint with you and stop me along the way. If you've got questions or comments or changes, this is our first draft, first look at it. So with that being said, I'm going to go down below. Okay, they should be putting the PowerPoint up momentarily so that you can see it. Can you all hear me? Is that okay? They should be getting the PowerPoint up. There we go. Okay. This is a draft of the PowerPoint that we're going to show the City Council on July 22nd. That meeting that night is when they set the maximum tax rate for the state. They can go lower later, but they've got to set the maximum. Remember we discussed that at the last meeting? This is the number that's going to go in what's called the trim notice that goes out to all homeowners before the tax bill comes out, to show them what the maximum rate's going to be, what the maximum is going to pay. What will happen is in September, the council will do their final approval of the budget. We'll make basically the same presentation, shortened a little bit, and they'll make their final determination on the tax rate. They can keep the one that they approve on the 22nd, assuming that they approve the one that we've been discussing, or they can approve a lower one. They cannot approve a higher one. Okay, with all of that, we'll get into the PowerPoint. This first slide is a recap of what we did, this committee recommended last year. We recommended to the council the raising of $265,000. They approved the millage rate of 3.8556, which raised that $265,000. And in there was the $100,000 for the lagoon, the $50,000 for All Aboard Florida, the $15,000 for the COPS grant, and an additional $100,000 for the roads. So that gives them a basis of some of the items that we discussed this year. We'll get into that in a moment. Okay, here is a list of items that we discussed. We obviously have discussed the general fund and been through that with Ken Kilgore's presentation. We've had discussions about the canal repairs and heard where we are on that, and there is no recommendation for any funds in the upcoming budget because there are no plans yet, if any, if there are ever going to be any. We don't know. We discussed roads. And this is one area where we wanted to put another $100,000 in. It's already been done because, as you'll see in another slide, that is covered in the 15-16 budget already. The golf course irrigation project, we've discussed that at length. That's the $1.3 million to redo the golf course irrigation and how to fund it. That's going to be presented to council sometime in the near future. They've basically got their arms around the concept, but they haven't got their arms around the funding yet. Indian River Lagoon funding, we discussed that, another $100,000. All Aboard Florida funding, $50,000. Public safety, we discussed it, especially at the last meeting, and came to the conclusion there were no recommendations to add any additional police, so nothing will be done there. Quarter round drainage construction, Mr. Griffin discussed that at length. It's been temporarily halted, and they've gone to ditch cleaning. They'll go back to quarter round probably year after next. The CRA enhancement of sewer connectivity, they want another $50,000 for that. And we discussed city staff expansion. Now, the general fund budget itself, got about $250,000 for projected salary increases. Projected. They have to be negotiated with the two unions, as Ken mentioned a little while ago. $153,000 in new operating expenses. Minus $130,000 in proposed expense reductions. So we have a net budget increase of $273,700 plus. And as I just said, the key items in there are the 3% pay increase and the added increase in the operating expenses. And the pay increase will be negotiated with the unions, and the operating expenses are well documented and justified. Now, the previous items that we put in this year's budget are funded in the 2015-16 budget. The lagoon, road paving, plus another $100,000 that's already budgeted in there. All Aboard Florida at 50, and the sewer connectivity. And actually, Ken, is the sewer connectivity 100,000 or 50,000?
We've programmed in the CRA projections that would be 100,000
Okay,
in ongoing years.
I thought so. All right. So we say where the money is coming from and the fact that it's built into the 2015-16 budget. So they can see they approved them last year, and then we've rolled them into the same things again this year. Now, how do we get there? The property values are up 9.55%. If we keep the same millage, 3.8556, same as this year, it raises an additional $293,000. The 3.8556 millage balances proposed 2015-16 budget. So if we keep the same millage, it raises additional funds, and that's what we've got to discuss when we get done. Again, make sure that everybody agrees that this is where we want to head as far as our recommendation. So we're recommending, tentatively, till we all agree on this, approve the 2015-16 recommended budget and approve the maximum millage rate of 3.8556. And those are going to be our recommendations to the City Council. Before I get up there, questions or comments? Okay. We can go back over it because you've got the handout, and we can handle that, and I'll be right back up there. Okay. So going back really to item B, essentially, last time we actually did take a vote, did we not, on the 3.8556? Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that that's what we're going to recommend. It's the same millage as last year. And we're going to recommend the city budget as presented. Then you've got your budget book with changes as they go along. There'll be small ones. We're all agreed on that. Anything else that any of you want to do? Sergio?
Does council have, I know we recommend 3.8, but do they have a paper that says where we talked about the rollback before, what would happen if they decide to go with the rollback?
They will be given that because Ken will give him that in his presentation.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to see the rollback, which raises about $95,000, something right along there. I think,
No, actually, it's more like, it's $161,000,
oh, excuse me.
and that is net of an adjustment I would gain from part of an adjustment from the
Okay.
CRA transfer, but the net difference to general fund would be $160,552.
So obviously, the budget as proposed will not balance with the rollback rate.
If you look at it in a sense, if we take away that $160,000 of ad valorem, but yet we've gained about $20,000 since the budget book was published. So you're talking about, in rough numbers, 140, 150
Out of balance.
out of balance.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, I know we voted 6-0 last time for the 3.8. I just want to make sure city council understands them two options they have available and the courses of action that will be impacted from either action, the 3.8 or 3.6, that's all.
Well, they've got any latitude they want from 3.8556 down. Any number that they pick or that they can work out, they can go down from this. What we're recommending to them is the millage rate that balances, the projected 15-16 budget as presented. If they want to adjust the budget, take things out, move things around, that's their choice. And between the 22nd of July and the first budget hearing, they'll probably have a meeting sometime in August to discuss the budget amongst themselves at a city council meeting. I've forgotten exactly when it is, but, and they could send the city manager and, again, back to the drawing board if they want.
If I may, it's part of my normal presentation each year to them at the time of the proposed millage, which is on the 22nd, to give them those, the rollback is always an obvious consideration, and I would show them, you know, what dollar differences that would result in. Their meeting to go over actually what's in the budget and the contents is on August 10th. So part of our recommendation on the 22nd of July is that they set the millage at least at the 3.8, knowing that we've got a balanced budget as it is. And if they choose to go lower than that, I would hope they would defer that until the discussions that they're presented with in August as far as what items would be given up if that's their desire. I mean, they may express their desire on the 22nd of July, and then we would be looking around and giving them options on what would have to be given up to balance. And hopefully by September they They wouldn't do any higher millage than the 3.8 because that is, it's not impossible to change, but it's cost prohibitive because you would have to notify everyone by first-class mail. You'd have to do advertisements. So if anyone has that intent to go any higher, they certainly should be doing it during this early process.
I think one thing I would add here is, let's see, I've been doing this, been on the budget committee 7 or 8 years, and the council has never had any fear about setting a relatively high number for the millage rate. I mean, not exorbitant, because you don't want to send out a trim notice that absolutely frightens the populace, but something that's in reason. And I think probably historically they pretty well stuck to that number, because the budget comes in balanced and they go through the budget, and by September they're pretty well, everybody's pretty well digested, including the public, because the public wants, they can see this meeting many times over, so typically it stays pretty much where they set in July. There have been some changes, but not much. Okay? All right. So as far as the PowerPoint, I've got a couple or comment myself. As I went through it, standing up there, I've got to make it flow a little better. I may reverse some pages. But other than that, the content, are you all comfortable with it? We're all in agreement on it. Okay. Any other discussion on that?
As far, Ed, as far as the PowerPoint goes, I really like the way you summarize the 2014, 2015 details of where the extra $265,000 went. Is there any way to summarize some of that same format for 15, 16?
Yeah.
I see you identified everything.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, we identify them later on. Are you talking about next year or?
Well, 15, 16, I think we're saying that the net budget increased 273. That's just
Right.
a few items, but
Right.
the page before that, we talked about 15 different things, or
Right.
7 different things, anywhere from the golf course to the
Right, I
city
understand.
staff, so.
Okay. All right.
That was the only thing I noticed. I think it looked
Okay.
really well. You did a good job presenting and clarifying it.
Thank you. All right. Let me see what I can do with that.
Ed,
Yes.
if you like, I could probably put together a little chart that would show a comparison this year versus next year's proposal, using the same items and then put them side by side.
Okay.
I could furnish that to you, maybe to drop it in.
All right. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Be glad to.
I'll give you a call and see when you're available. Anyway. All right. Anything else on the budget that we need to discuss? Okay. Being none, let's move along. Public input? No public input. Staff matters? Don't have.
I might just mention the meeting schedule again. As we talked about, July 22nd, the City Council will meet on the proposed millage. On August 3rd, the committee will meet again to do any updates to the PowerPoint or the present material to be presented. And then the council workshop will be on August 10th. So that's their chance to really dive into the details of what's funded and what's not. And I'll be making probably a similar presentation as I had given y'all previously. So,
Ken, can I just clarify something? I'm looking at our budget calendar that's put out at the beginning of the year. And on July 20th, you say that's the deadline to send a DR 420.
No, actually, since this was published, I got an update from the property appraiser's office that it will be due on the 24th.
Oh, that's my
And that's what allowed
confusion
me-
of why you keep saying, I keep going, how the heck are we missing this by 2 days?
That's why I was able to defer it then
Okay.
to the second meeting of July for the council to set the millage, because I can get it off the following day to the property
Okay, that's
appraiser.
the 24th. Thank you.
Yeah, otherwise, we'd be making absolutely sure this is right and having to present it this Wednesday night. Which, thank you for the change. Okay. Anything else, Ken? Anything else?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, board matters. Anything else? Any discussion? Sergio?
I hope anybody watching this channel or any other citizens are encouraged to come to these meetings, and even if you don't understand some of the accounting or financial terminology, some of the issues that we do discuss here are of vital importance when you talk about how taxes are allocated throughout the city and how the sausage is made. But like I said, I hope we have some more members of the public attend. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would, for members of the public who want to review this meeting or the previous budget meetings, these meetings are now on YouTube. They're much easier to get a hold of. And if you just type in City of Sebastian, you'll come up with all of the meetings that have been uploaded to YouTube. This meeting will probably be there tomorrow, and our previous meetings are on YouTube. And our next meeting is August 3rd. We'll be updating you. Any of you who want to take the time and come to the city council meeting on the 22nd, please do so. And I think that about covers it, unless anybody else has got something. With that being said, we stand adjourned.